Welcome to Squatch D-TV, exploring the Bigfoot mystery each week with your hosts, veteran researcher, author, and TV personality, the Squatch Detective, Steve Kulls, and from the Bigfoot Research Project of Kentucky, Chris Bennett. Sit back and buckle up as we bring you guests from around North America discussing the Bigfoot phenomena, but not without a few laughs, too. Here are your hosts, Steve and Chris.
And good evening, cyberspace. Welcome to Squatch D-TV for today's date, January 14th, 2024. I'm your host, your guide, the Squatch Detective, Steve Kulls, along with my co-host, Mr. Chris Bennett. What's up, Chris?
Hey, man, we are getting some snow, if you can believe it. Kentucky is getting snow, and it's 14 degrees Fahrenheit outside. 14. It's in the teens here. I can't believe it.
Welcome to the rest. Welcome to the rest of the world, Chris.
Oh no, man. No. I could use some global warming about now. It's really cold.
It's what, 14 degrees? You said
14. Yeah, and it's supposed to be 10 tonight. So yeah.
Oh, well, see, I'm only supposed to go down to 19 degrees tonight. I'm actually at 23 degrees right now.
Well, isn't that odd? Normally, I'm like, oh yeah, well, it was 60 degrees here today, and you're like, oh well, I'm 30 below zero.
And like even the whole week is supposed to be in the high 20s. But in high teens. That's our medium. Not very much, only about a 10-degree difference between day and night. So not too awful for us.
I looked on the weather, and they had like this thing coming in from the Midwest, and it's like really scary looking. But I thought that'll probably just blow up there on Steve and won't affect us any. Oh no, we're getting a good dose of it.
Yep. And of course, our guest tonight, our good friend Dave Spinks.
Hey, Dave.
What's up, Dave?
What's up, guys?
And Dave is former law enforcement, and what a great guy he is. Very down to earth, level-headed investigator type. And we're going to get into a lot of conversation. But he does not only investigate Bigfoot, but he investigates everything cryptid, everything paranormal, everything in the sky. It just does it all. So that's really cool.
Well, Bigfoot's what started me in this stuff many years ago.
Yep. And the real cool thing is that when like myself, and I'm sure Chris does, we look at other mysteries too. I kind of specialize in this one, which is like last week. The reason why we said that, listen, I know people want me to start debunking some dogmen stuff, but that's not my forte. It's not my field of expertise. It's been in this one little realm. I don't mind talking about that stuff sometimes, but really my forte is this. And while we're on that topic, something broke this week out of another one of the big three mysteries, which is paranormal, UFOs, and Bigfoot. To me, those are the big three. As the UFO field, we had the release of the jellyfish video by Jeremy Corbell, which I thought was, when I saw it, I was stunned because I knew the source. And the source, Jeremy Corbell, has always been extremely reliable and stuff. George Knapp, the reporter out in Nevada, Las Vegas, who broke out the Skinwalker Ranch case, the Area 51 case, and stuff like that, and was an investigative journalist, was kind of Jeremy Corbell's mentor. Yeah. And so I know when something comes from Jeremy Corbell, you ought to listen because it's going to be on the level. And sure enough, he released this jellyfish video from one of his sources. And totally amazing. And Chris saw it for the first time. Chris had not seen it until about 15 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, it blew my mind. I couldn't believe it, And this is not something coming from, Cousin Elmer's, jazzy camcorder. This is footage from like DOD security camera secured stuff. So, and I was like, God, what the hell? Am I watching an episode of Star Wars or what? It was so cool.
That's what they reminded me of those the Empire drones that they sent down to Hoth, man. That's what they kind of look like.
Exactly.
You know,
it's really weird. And so I thought that was just like wild. And from what I understand was that they couldn't see it with their naked eyes. They could, or even with night vision, they only could see it with FLIR, forward-looking infrared.
Yeah. While I was watching the video a few minutes, that struck me. There was a couple of guys walking inside the compound, and they're just, I guess, shooting the breeze, whatever guys are doing, walking along, and this thing flies right over the top of them. And, they never, you don't see any hands pointing in the air or arms pointed up or anything. It's like they didn't even notice it.
Yeah,
no sound. They had like cloaking technology, it looked like at one point on there. Pretty interesting stuff.
Changing color and stuff like that. Heat signatures and stuff. But before we get in any further, we'll do our roll call for the night. As usual.
Yeah.
And so I said earlier who's going to be first tonight. And then Mick jumps in and says, who knows? So Mick is first in tonight. Hello, Mick. Pat Collins, there's Pat Iron Dogger.
Good to see you, man.
Deal. Hey, John over Sasquatch Wizard Adirondacks. Relic Hominin. Oh, my goodness. Well, he popped in to say hello and then went to bed because he is 5 hours ahead of us.
Yeah, he's in the UK, I think.
UK, yep. Walter Kroll in the house. Charlotte J. Good to see you, Charlotte. Low rider, low. What's going on?
Right there.
Paul Gaglian. Good to see you. Sharon. Hello. Sure. Eyes in the Woods is in the house as well tonight. Tom Conley, thanks for all you do, brother. And Tom is in the house. And Tom says, how about them Cowboys? Here we go. Straight to the couch. Grasshopper in the house. Grasshopper. Traveling with Jim, our good buddy Jim Lansing. Hello, Jim. Good to see you.
Welcome.
And Chris is in the house. And of course, first words out of his mouth, Joan. Get me a Snapple. Uncle Bones, too. Good evening, Uncle Bones. Little Kilroy was here slapping hoaxers. Hey, there's Mike.
Hey, Mike.
Tactical Bigfoot Research. Good to see you.
Hey, Mike.
And going. Here we are. Hey, Chuck, Truther, our buddy Chuck is in the house. Good to see you, Chuck. Hope things are at least a little warmer in New Hampshire. I doubt it, but Gary Johnson Sr. in the house. Good to see you, Gary. Jen, how are you?
Hey, Jen.
Martin McTighe, good to see you as well.
Martin, welcome.
And I got to hang on. Got a little scratch in my throat. Of course, I was on for about an hour with Nikki over at Sasquatch Secrets, so my voice is a little rough right now.
You've already got warmed up over on Nikki's show. Huh?
Mr. 2505 Federal, good to see you here from 2 winter storm warnings, blizzard in the same week in Nebraska.
Wow.
Good Lord. Angel Nolan, Angel's in the house. Good to see Angel.
Welcome.
Who else? We got Blake Burrows. Blake Burrows said he made it. Well, we're glad you made it, sir.
Good to see you, Blake.
And that looks like it for the roll. Oh, and
Henry White Jr.
In case we missed him. Hello, Grasshopper. Good to see you. So, okay, I think we got everybody.
Welcome, everybody. Good to see you. Thank you for being with us tonight. Appreciate you.
Wow, how to get that frog out of my throat.
I hope everybody's getting a good dose of winter weather. Last night, about 3:30 this morning, it was snowing here, and I looked out through the security footage. Of course, I ain't going out there.
Don Gamau Jr. in the house as well. Don, I am going to get to your stuff this week, I promise. For those who don't know, for the last 5 months, I have been working night shift. So, and it's been very rough, especially since I come home Sunday mornings, and then, but now my new shift has begun. So I'm on days again, 4 days a week. And I got a 3-day weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So we'll be working on a lot of stuff.
The shift of the living dead. I used to work that for years.
God. So, I'm going home when everybody's coming there. And I'm like, I get home and you eat dinner when you get home, not breakfast. I got a little pizza. Oh, yeah. Chicken wings. And you're like,
8 o'clock in the morning.
I love night shift. I lived on night shift for about 15 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. But how old were you?
Yeah, well, I quit when I retired. I ended up retiring at what? 2011. So, let me think. How many years ago was that? In my 40s, But I did it so long in the military and in law enforcement, I loved it.
Yeah, I did too, but I'm finding that now I'm reaching the mature age. It's like the body,
the old man age.
Yeah, the body just does not want to take it anymore. Like once in a while is great, but every week is like, oh. So
yeah. Tom said he loves third shift. Tom Conley said, I love third shift. Well,
me too. I did too.
Depends on how you, some people like being night owls and some people don't. I always, did pretty well on it. I really like second. Second was great.
Second shift is the best, I think.
Love that. Yeah.
So my new shift is kind of in between. So my new shift actually begins at 10 in the morning and ends at 8 at night. It's 10-hour shift. So I don't have to get up too early. Don't get home too late. I can do stuff at night. I can do stuff early in the morning and play in between and a nice 3-day weekend. So I get out Thursday at 8:00 in the evening and I don't go back till Monday. So
that's a good deal.
Yeah. Man, that's a bad thing about third shift. If you go home and go to bed because you're tired, you sleep your first day off. It's like you only get a 1 day weekend. That's terrible.
Yep.
But, hey,
well, that's what they were doing to me for the longest time.
Yeah,
it's like if I was lucky, I was getting like a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday off.
Yeah.
When they weren't sticking me with an extra shift for overtime. So, finding the trackway, said, "Oh, yep, West Virginia police officer. I wanted to see this." So let's get into this. I was going to do a segue about, and we can talk about that in a little bit. But there's a reason why I wanted to talk about this UAP stuff a little bit at the beginning of the show, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Why? But Dave, we got a whole brand new audience. I think the last time we had you, we were kind of just starting up on the channel, and now we have quite a larger audience than we did, and we've got this whole cast of characters going on over there, like Helton, aka Faster Man, who just snuck in.
The best audience right here,
and they are a great loyal audience. We love them. And so, explain to us, your background and how you got involved in the Bigfoot mystery, which started you on this long journey of the unknown.
Well, Bigfoot's really what started me in all this because, I was a 13-year-old kid and on a normal fishing trip with my grandfather here in West Virginia, place that we went quite often. I mean, it was one of our favorite spots. We'd camp out for 2 or 3 days and fish and just have a great time. And back in 1983, I was here visiting in the summer and we went on one of our fishing trips there on the Gauley River. And we had gotten there, and I didn't get to spend a lot of time with both sets of my grandparents and my dad because my mom was remarried and we lived out in New Mexico, and my stepdad was in the Air Force. So when I got to come home here in the summers and spend time with my grandparents, I really relished that. And a lot of times I would get to come home for hunting season and stuff and hunt with my dad and both my papaws and everything. So this was my dad's dad I'm talking about. And he was a preacher. He's a Baptist minister for 40 years. After World War II, he was a medic in World War II, and he was on the second wave at Normandy. So you can imagine what he saw because the first wave was pretty much obliterated, and he was a medic. So you can imagine what the man saw. And I've got some really cool pictures of him standing on those big German 88 guns on the train tracks. And I got a picture of him with 2 French girls and a bottle of wine in each hand, some really cool stuff from back in those days, but nothing scared this man. He was a rock solid dude and really strong in his faith. Well, we happened to be on our fishing trip, got there, and he was wanting to set up camp, and I'm like, I want to get my line in the water right away, and so I'm pumped. And he's like, go ahead, boy, go ahead and start fishing, So while he was setting up gear and stuff, and so I'm fishing, and right off the bat, I caught a really nice rainbow, man. I mean, within minutes, I was stoked, and we just had a great time. And this is in the summer, and we got fishing, and we both caught our limit. And right before dark, it was about 15, 20 minutes before dark, we had cooked our trout up right there on the fire, and Grandma sent like cornbread and a bunch of good food with us, and we were just sitting there like fat cats enjoying ourselves right on the river, and just taking it all in. And out of nowhere, this splash hit out in the river. Now, this section of the river on the Gauley here in West Virginia it's pretty good sized river. It's probably anywhere from, it varies, depending on the water heights and stuff, but 40 to 60 yards across to the other side. And it was running pretty good then. And this huge splash hits the water, and it was kind of off to our left a little bit, but it was a significant enough splash that the water rained down. Like the way I always try to give everybody a comparison is, imagine a full-grown man doing a cannonball off the diving board, boom, and it just rains down water. So, of course, we jumped up because it was like, what the frick? There was no other people out there.
Right.
It's kind of a remote area where we used to go fish. It was about a 4-mile drive down off the hard road on a logging road into that part of the river, especially back in those days. So, we were out in there pretty good. And so we jumped up trying to figure out what in the world was that. And it was out kind of almost in the middle of the river. There was no trees overhanging that part of the river. On the other side, it was very steep and rugged with rock cliffs, very dangerous. Like if people don't even fish over there, because if you slipped, you were done. You're going down and you're going to bust your head open and drown in the water, man. Pretty much a sheer rock area, So after several minutes, we didn't see anything floating in the water. We knew it wasn't a fish that big. If it was a fish that big, oh my God. I mean, it's a monster fish, let's go. But we just couldn't figure it out, and Papa was like trying to throw rational explanations. He's like, well, maybe a rock rolled off that cliff. I said, we would have heard that. It would have made all kind of noise coming down to other rocks, and I'm just sitting there going, no. And so we sat back down in our lawn chairs there that we had around the fire pit, and going, just kind of talking about it, scratching our heads. That was weird, and I was kind of a little bit like unnerved by it. I'm like, man, I hope there's not a fish that big, because I swim in that water, because I don't like sharks either. They freak me out. So after several minutes goes by, I heard this noise, and it was something that sounded like something clipping through tree branches. And I looked out of my peripheral vision, I see a rock about, I don't know if you guys can see me on that little camera, about that big around.
Oh boy.
Coming up through the trees, clipping branches, and then comes out and hits the water. And my papa saw it too, because it was like, clipping through those tree limbs, making that sound, and then kaboosh, hit out in the water again. That's when we knew, okay, that must have been what the first thing was. Yeah. Now, what the hell's throwing rocks that?
Uh-oh.
Oh, I think we lost Dave. Oh, maybe he'll catch up.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Did we lose you?
Yeah, just for a second. We got you now, Dave. Go ahead.
He said in his mind, he's thinking there's people over there, I guess, because he yells out, "You hoodlums, knock it off, or I'll shoot." So we always carried a 20 gauge single shot squirrel gun with us for snakes, because there's a lot of snakes in that part of the river down there. So right at the time he got done saying that, we heard the most god awful guttural scream howl sound come from over there, and it's thick. It's from thick woods over there too on that side of the river. And then there's rock cliffs everywhere covered with trees, but there's no trees that really hang out, like I said, over the water. That, whatever that thing was, I mean, it let out the most guttural howl, and then of course we're in a big canyon area, so it just echoed even louder, and it was like it's my blood curdled. I'm not gonna lie, I was scared crapless. I don't know if we can cuss on here or whatever, but I cuss sometimes, so I apologize ahead of time if I say the F-bomb or any other curse word. So at this point, I'm going, what in the F was that? And he's yelling across.
The FCC is watching.
So, he's yelling across there, "You hoodlums, knock it off, or I'll shoot," this and that. And that thing lets out this holler like, you can't even, unless you've heard it, I can't explain it to you. And Steven, you guys know what I'm talking about. Right. So that goes on, and he yells out, and then the branches over there start shaking. And I'm not talking just branches. I'm talking trees about at least that big around, if not bigger, 40, 50, 60-foot saplings start shaking like they're toothpicks. Why this thing's tearing down the woods over there, screaming and hollering, making all kind of racket. So I'm kind of transfixed, and then I'd look to see what my grandpa's doing. Well, he's gone. And I'd look back, and he's running for the tent. So I'm like, oh, crap, he's going to get the shotgun, So he comes running back, and I've never seen my grandpa run in my entire life. I have seen him carry a car engine block up on the porch by himself. That's how strong of a man he was. But he comes back, and he yells at me, "Get to the truck, boy." I'm thinking now, oh, it's going down now. So
that is so typical West Virginia talk too.
Yeah,
get to the truck, boy.
So I run over there, and the truck's parked about 20 yards away from us at a catty corner angle, right? And all of a sudden, I'm just watching. This is all going on slow motion, and I'm seeing it in slow motion because you know how when stuff gets nasty and crazy, it seems like it goes in slow motion. So he starts loading that 20 gauge and capping off rounds as fast as he can load and unload that thing. And I'm like, oh shit, man! What? I'm cowering down by the front bumper, like peeking around the quarter panel, watching all this go down. And as he starts shooting, the thing screams louder and meaner. And at this point, we don't know what it is. We haven't even seen whatever is making this racket and tearing the woods down over there. But then you can start tracking it. As he's shooting, it's kind of going up and away, and we can track it through the tree movement in the brush. And it's just like going through there, tearing down stuff, screaming and hollering. And as I'm watching this go down, there was a little clearing by the rock cliff, and there was some probably, for me, it would probably be chest high brush at that, where it was my height as a 13-year-old. I see this thing come out of the wood line, and it's a massive, hairy fucking man looking thing, reddish brown with some black streaks through it. And you can see its head is tiny compared to its shoulders, man. The shoulders on this thing were just massive. And you could see the muscle striation in it. And I was like 40, 50 yards away. That's how big it was. And you could see the muscle as it's coming out through there. And my grandpa, I looked to see what my grandpa's doing. He's running towards me at this point. I'm like, I'm just going, what in the F is going on? So he grabs me with one arm and opens the truck door and slings me through the truck cab. And if the passenger door would have been open, I would have went completely through the truck cab and landed outside the truck. I slam against the door. He jumps in. He said, "That's not of God, son. We're getting out of here." So he cranks the truck up, and we haul butt out of there. Now, mind you, the road to get in there is an old logging road, and it's full of potholes and everything else. And it sounds like the truck's falling apart, man. He's gunning it out of there. And I got my face buried in my hands thinking, oh my God, the truck's going to break down and that thing's going to come and kill us, man. And we finally get up out of there, we're on the hard road, and he's driving around not saying a word. And we, after, I don't know, it must have been 15, 20 minutes. And, I know his brain's just cranking. He's trying to figure out what in the hell we just saw. And he pulls off the side of the road, and he said, "Son, we better not tell no one about this. They're going to think we're crazy." And we kind of made a pact right there never to talk about that because he had parishioners and stuff. He's a preacher, Yeah. They're going to think he's doing drugs, drinking, whatever. So here I am keeping that a secret my whole life, but at the same time, it scared the hell out of me. And I wanted to know what the hell it was I saw. What was that? I didn't know what that was. Now, the old timers like my other grandpa, they would kid around with us kids, don't stay out after dark because the wood boogers are going to get you. Well, we're thinking ghosts and stuff. We're not not putting two and two together. Now I know they were telling us what they thought, that it was this Bigfoot type creature. And back in those days, we didn't have the luxury of the internet. I had to go to the school library, the local library to find out more information. So little by little, I started uncovering like Time magazine articles about the Yeti and other magazines and newspaper articles all over the country and all over the world. And I was like, that's what I saw. And then I finally saw the show In Search Of with Leonard Nimoy, and I happened to see the very first episode I ever saw of that show was the Bigfoot episode. And I was like, that's it. That's what I saw. holy shit, these things are real. What is this? And that's where it kind of all started off for me in my search for the little piece of the puzzle, because I had this life-changing experience. I didn't go in the woods for like 6 years after that. I had nightmares about it. I'd wake up cold sweats because the noise that came out of that animal or whatever it was so guttural and so powerful. And then when you see how the size of this thing, it could crush us like a freaking zit, man, literally. I mean, this thing was massive. And, my grandpa was a big dude. Like I said, he was like 6'3", and I saw him carry a car engine block up on the porch, up the steps by himself. He had arms bigger than my legs, and he was a very big, strong guy, and it made him look like a little people, a small person. And, it scared the living hell out of me. But, that's really how it all started for me. And, so over the years, I was privy enough to go to some really killer locations out west because my stepdad was in the military, and we took a lot of trips, and I got to visit a lot of ancient sites and different things like that, and started learning more about that stuff. And it's more and more, it just kind of snowballed. And that's really what started me in this. And ever since then, I've been researching all over the country. And after I got out of the military, I came back to West Virginia. And I started going out to that site again, and other people started contacting me, and I've got many credible law enforcement officer reports, sightings from doctors, school teachers, lawyers. I even have a prosecuting attorney. I can't say his name because he don't want me to, but I got some compelling evidence from those folks. Recordings from another law enforcement officer on a case I'm still actively working today. And right now, a place here in Nicholas County that I have access to 3,000 acres where I'm actually working on setting up basically a Bigfoot laboratory. And there's one holler out there that one of the guys had a really profound experience. And just this season hunting, I was in my tree stand in the it was probably 4:00 in the afternoon, and I heard there was nobody up there. This is 3,000 plus acres. And surrounded by other leases that I didn't see anybody at. I heard wood knocks start happening on my left and on my right. Deep haulers. I'm talking deep haulers. And I was like, I got out of my tree stand. It was kind of spooky, to be honest with you, because I've been up there hunting a lot, almost my whole life. And I've had some other experiences up there, but it was very close to me and I couldn't see anything. I used to always carry my little FLIR out on my cell phone FLIR with me too. I couldn't pick up nothing on that, but the knocks were really close, and it was almost as if they were communicating back and forth through wood knocking. And I was like, man, I think it's time for me to go. And I got out of my stand and got on the 4-wheeler, and I was out of there. But I'm really excited about this because I actually have putting up a new PVC blind this year, and I'm wiring that thing with call blasting and the whole 9 yards. And it's going to be my own kind of outdoor lab, man, so to speak. I've got 11 trail cams out. I've got all kind of cool stuff I'm going to be putting out there, and I'm going to be filming a documentary with a really good filmmaker about it because he's filming his own documentary. He wants to come up there and put my stuff in it. So it's going to be a lot of fun and interesting to see what happens with that. We even got a hauler in that acreage that they call Squatch Holler because a couple of the guys found some weird bedding areas that don't make sense, some track, and the other guy the guy that had this other experience, you know how I always hunt till it's dark and then I get out of my tree stand. Well, he leaves an hour and a half before dark because of the experience he had. So his experience will be in my new Bigfoot book coming out later this year. I'll have it ready for Eric's event, hopefully. So
nice. And a couple of things. Number one, Jay Fritz had an encounter when Jay he had this encounter some 50 years ago or 40 some odd years ago. Small child hunting squirrel, I believe, and had an experience and kept him out of the woods the rest of his life. And he actually posted earlier, I put it up there, it said, sounds familiar.
When I analyze my experience, like I looked at it more over the years, I think the thing was kind of like more pissed that it was kind of like this is my area. I'm here now. Get out, type situation.
Yeah. It's what we would call what I would normally classify as a territorial type of sighting or encounter, because it's displaying, it's trying to get you out without really doing you harm. It's trying to scare you, but and it's trying the rock throwing, it's trying the screams.
And we know that great apes too will do a mock charge at you, to say, hey, get out of here. But whether that's what it was, I don't know. And I know you've heard of many people reporting big sticks being thrown at them and stuff like that over the years. I know I've got numerous ones of those myself, especially here in West Virginia. And I look at Bigfoot and Sasquatch kind of like people, there's red ones, yellow ones, black ones, white ones, and some are more docile than others. They're just like people, man, in my book, after having interviewed so many hundreds of people over the years.
And that's the same with all primates. They all have their individual personalities that,
if you're on the primate side of it, if that's what you believe they are, primates, that makes perfect sense to me too. So
I really liked your encounter you had when you was a kid, when your granddad stuffed you in the truck.
Yeah. Well, there's the end funny note, if you want to hear it real quick, is kind of funny. So, how I kept it secret all these years, I didn't talk about it. Right. So when my grandpa died and doing what I do, I was like, I always get that question, what started you in this? I never told the actual story. And I decided, well, he's gone now. I kept my promise. I'm going to tell that story now. So I called my uncle, which my dad was already dead, and my other uncles and all my other grandparents were already dead. So I decided I was going to tell that story whenever I got the question, what started you in this? And so I called my uncle to tell him, hey, I just want you to know, back in '83, me and Papa were fishing, and I was telling him all about it. And he goes, oh, you're talking about that time you and Papa saw that monkey man. And I'm like, what? And I was like, he told you? And he goes, oh, man, he told me that like 25 years ago. I'm like, what? I was like, I kept that secret. I promised him. He goes, well, he told me that you guys made a promise to not talk about it, but he also wanted someone else to know what happened, what you guys experienced, in case something would happen to him.
Right. Wow.
So but still, I kept it quiet all these years, and I was like, damn it, what the hell? So, and I ended up writing about it in my West Virginia Bigfoot book, which you can get on Amazon. Selfless plug there. And it has a lot of.
The link is down below in the show description.
Oh, cool. Thanks, Steve. Yep. And so I wrote about, and I have a lot of encounters from law enforcement, like I said, and a lot of other people in West Virginia in that book. And I wrote about it, and then that's how the TV show came to find out about my story, Terror in the Woods and These Woods Are Haunted. Same show, different name. Don't ask me why. I don't know. That's TV for you. Yep. But they had me come on there and tell my story, which, of course, they screwed up and added stuff that didn't happen. So I always tell folks, you want the real whole story, read the book.
Yep. It's always the truth. That's where you usually find the truth. We know Brian Gosling, same thing, when Mysterious Encounters did his story. They had him in uniform in the patrol car, and he's like, no, I was off duty in my civvies and stuff like that. So there's always that little. So Brian Barber wanted to say thank you for speaking publicly about this. And and Helton, aka Fizz, said, I never seen a Bigfoot, but I have had a Leonard Nimoy sighting in Beverly Hills once when I was going to the bank.
Going to the bank. That's nice.
That's hysterical. And then Jay Fritz, again, that gentleman who had the sighting when he was a young boy, again says, until you see one of the things, it's actually hard to describe the body mass of these things. Yep. So, and to hear Jay's story, and we have that on, it's just an amazing story. And he tells it in such a, again, you can always tell authentic witnesses because they have you can tell automatically this connection they have to the story. And you certainly have a connection, and you have an extra gift to this, is that your grandfather played one hell of a practical joke on you from beyond the grave.
Yes, he did. Yeah, I couldn't believe it. Here he is, a preacher, and and I kept my promise, and he told my uncle, but I understand why he did. So it was just kind of a funny side note to the whole thing, but
very, very smart thing he did, though.
Yeah.
Find somebody you can trust, tell them that story to keep and hold. So in case
Be
there
right
is
back,
one
Steve.
survivor, in case there is one survivor left, there's somebody to say, yep, I was told.
And that, that actually led to another story from his wife's brother. Came out and told me and my uncle that my grandpa told that he was in about 2 miles away from that same area one time, several years before that, cutting firewood. And he said he was bent down cutting a log and looked up, and there was one standing there looking at him in the face. And he said, I fell backwards over a log and almost cut my leg off with the chainsaw, and I've never been back there since. So that area there is very active, and I've in the book I've got several other reports over the years of that same area, probably a 5-mile radius.
And of course, one of the earliest northeastern sighting reports we have was in Vermont in 1879. 2 boys hunting in the woods, and they come across this brownish, reddish brown hairy man. Or wild man, and it scared them so much they dropped their guns and they ran the muskets and fled back home.
Yep, I understand why.
Yeah. So it's amazing how, and as law enforcement now, we'll get into this a little bit too. It's amazing how you see these stories which corroborate themselves over the years, and for somebody like you and me who've been on the investigative side of real world stuff, I don't think the science-y type of people realize the significance of that.
No, they don't. Because paranormal / supernatural or even undocumented creatures, unless they can recreate it or have a body, they're not going to buy into it. That's just how scientific minded people are, that use a scientific method, I should say. We're scientific minded, but we approach it a different way. Right. We're looking at circumstantial evidence and trying to put a case together. So, right. That's how I do it. I mean, I use my law enforcement background basically, and who, what, where, when, why, and how. I mean, if you use that model, you can answer a lot of questions, So
Don, that was Pownal, Vermont, Pownal, Vermont, that occurred in, I believe.
Oh, even Teddy Roosevelt talked about seeing these creatures on his hunts and stuff. He was a very famous hunter and explorer, one of our presidents. And, I mean, these stories go way back. Abraham Lincoln talked about giants. They know stuff. The government knows stuff, man. And, one of them, I don't know if you ever followed those stories when Mount St. Helens blew up in 82. When I first started looking into this stuff, I started seeing some of those old news reports, and there was numerous eyewitnesses that said they saw military choppers with big nets under them after Mount St. Helens blew up, and they reported seeing what looked like Bigfoot bodies in these nets, and these military choppers were carrying out of there.
Okay, so the interesting thing is that we had Jay Birch on the show about a couple of years ago, I think, Chris. He has a channel called Bigfoot Barbecue.
Right.
And Jay was actually a National Guardsman at the time of the Mount St. Helens eruption. And he actually said that whole Mount St. Helens thing was totally false.
Doesn't surprise me.
He goes, we had too much to do. We were in a state of emergency. We had an area, I don't know how many square miles. He goes, it was just devastated. And the only thing we could do was look for people. That was what we did. And so I don't know, like I said, I think urban legend leads to a lot of things. There was the Columbus Day storm in Oregon that generated this tale, and we tracked it down to the actual person who started that story, and it was a known hoaxer to us. Who was saying, oh, this person said this and that person said this. But so many people for the longest time believed it because it was just, I always say, that stuff is, the anecdotal stuff. It's like, well, I saw this, and unless they actually see the Bigfoot, or, that's,
well, even my encounter is a story. I don't have any evidence of that.
Right.
All I can do is share it with folks and say, hey, take what you want out of it.
Right.
I'm telling you from a person with a good reputation and an honest, I'm an honest person. I have no reason to make up this stuff, especially when I first started talking about it. I didn't do this for TV. I wanted to share my experience with other people that may have had those experiences. And when I had my store, I had a store here in Richwood, West Virginia for 2.5 years. And you wouldn't believe the people that would come in almost on a couple of days a week and tell me these stories of these creatures they would see while hunting right here. And there was it was one after another and they felt so relieved that they were able to come in, and they tried to tell like their family, and the family said, "Oh, you're crazy, you're drunk or whatever." And they're like, "No." And they felt so relieved that they were able to get that story off their chest, something they've been holding in for 30, 40, 50, years. And, that was a really good feeling to be able to have a place where you wouldn't be judged. You could come in and share your experience with me and, or whoever I had working, and and get it off your chest. Because when you have a life-changing experience like that, man, and you have no outlet for it, it can really mess with some people and mess them up.
I always say this too, and you as law enforcement, is there is a big difference between. I get aggravated when people try to say that by you telling your Sasquatch story, it's anecdotal, because it's not. That's direct testimony. If somebody says, "Hey, I knew this guy that said he saw a Bigfoot," that's the anecdote.
Mm-hmm. That's third party.
Right. Yeah. That's retelling of the story. Direct testimony is what you're giving. And what, I talk about my sighting, I give, and we have this for the record. And that makes it a little more compelling to me than people saying, well, it's almost like kind of a wave off or trying to. And when I see that wave off, that should give you kind of that impression of where that person's biases are leaning to. Because if they really know, well, we have these witnesses, no, it's just anecdotal evidence. They kind of minimize it. That aggravates the hell out of me.
Oh, yeah. One cool story I had in my book, too, the very last story, one of the last ones I put in there, we had what they called the 1,000-year flood here in West Virginia in 2016, I believe, 2016. And I got an account from 5 state troopers, man, in Greenbrier County. It's not just right up the next county over from here. It's probably about 6 miles from where I'm at right now to the line. And they were watching this road, keeping from people going in there because it was flooded out so bad. And it was the middle of the night, and they were sitting there just BSing, keeping people out of there. And they had enough ambient light off of their patrol cars that were hitting out in the woods, and they heard something. They said it was huge running through the woods. And then it caught, right on the edge of their lights. And they said they saw a large humanoid figure running on 2 feet that was massive, covered in hair. They all drew their weapons. And one of the corporal or the sergeant, whoever was the highest one, said, "F that, I'm out of here." And they all jumped in their cars, man, and hauled ass. I mean, that's a compelling story. And they gave me their names and ranks to put in the book.
Yeah.
Wow.
That just doesn't happen, No. So when
rare.
you got 5 guys, you got 5 state troopers, the heaviest besides the Fed agencies that are in here, but the heaviestly armed guys in the state. They got ARs in their trunks and everything else in there in case they need them. They're heavily armed, and they chose to bug out, man. So that told me a lot right there, And so that story's in that book too. So, when you interview guys like that, and being on that side of the fence on the law enforcement side, these guys aren't BSing, man. They were, you could look in their eyes. I interviewed them in person, and they were straight up shitting their pants. When they all broke leather and they all, drew down on this thing as it's running across in front of their vehicles, and they're like, "What in the hell is going on?" And then they said, like, "I'm out of here, man." They jumped in their cars and cruised.
Here's a couple of more comments that I want to put out there. As far as like the Mount St. Helens thing is like, yeah, you couldn't keep a story like that under your thumb. I agree with that, because we let's look what's going on with I want to go back to what's in front of us currently, and that's the UAP stuff. How many whistleblowers have we had in that field, concerning very high top secret programs, right? We've had, Bob Lazar, who came forward about Area 51, who, a lot of his records were wiped clean, but thanks to some good investigative journalism by George Knapp, he claimed to be and Chris is going to bounce back to you. He claimed to be a scientist at Los Alamos at one time. And they denied that, but Knapp found the directory, the phone directory
with his name on it.
With his name on it. So that kind of blew that out of the water.
You can't refute that. Everything Bob said came true. Everything Bob said has been proven true. That element that's now on the periodic element chart. I mean, come on. The dude told the truth, man.
Yep. And then we have Grush coming forward. We had Philip Corso come forward years before that. We had Jesse Marcel come forward about the
astronauts
stuff, right? You would think somebody would be the face of this Mount St. Helens thing. This happened, 40 plus years ago, and nobody's come forward to say, well, I was the helicopter pilot, or I was the guy who
right.
Yeah, and part of that story is too that they had taken the Sasquatch bodies to the Alamogordo Primate facility in New Mexico, and I know that didn't happen. I actually
Chris was there.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, you never know what goes down with the government, man. We're never going to know all the stuff they've done. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. Right. And that would, like I said, I don't think the government's going to actively cover it up and spend money on it because it doesn't affect national defense. Bigfoot does not affect national defense. UAPs do.
Unless Bigfoot happens to be some sort of ET.
Yeah.
You can go down that rabbit hole if you want.
Yeah. We have, our Don saying every major story like this in LBL, St. Helens, the Big Thicket, or Phooey. The only one I consider was Bear Road is factual. And the difference there is Bear Road actually has the guy that came forward that said, hey, I was there. This is what happened. This is where it happened. This is, all these other, Big Thicket. That's a whole nother story that involves somebody with providing evidence that has been proven, fake. The Bob Garrett stuff.
God. Yeah.
And then we have the Mount St. Helens stuff, which you hear these little ruminations and maybe somebody giving a name on a website, but never really showing their face, because once you show your face,
that's it.
Kind of like, and there's a reason why he calls himself the Vault of BS. There's a guy that's out there by name Vault. We just cut a video on him a couple of weeks ago, who made a lot of claims, these incredulous claims, including that I was part of I was recruited out of boot camp in the Marine Corps to become part of the special tactics team that hunted werewolves, stuff like that. And it turns out that, thanks to the work of Don, had the Stolen Valor guy, Don Shipley, actually get his DD-214. he didn't have a DD-214.
Right.
The Marine Corps came back and said, nope, nobody was ever in the Department of Navy, either in the Navy or the Marine Corps ever. And Walt on his own podcast would say, well, there's records of everything you do as soon as you enter boot camp. And here it is, the DD-214 with or the lack of a DD-214, I should say. So, I think that the good news is that you, like me, and that comes from that investigator background. And I know Mick doesn't think that Stanton T. Friedman debunked Bob Lazar's story. Well, it's in control. Lazar lied. Well, he's been pretty consistent. Not really.
Everybody knew he was a brilliant guy. I mean, he did, he went to MIT. He's making jet engines and shit as a teenager, man. And cruising down on his bicycle.
And that is the biggest thing. You think Bob Lazar is a liar, then how come they found his name in a book in a phone book at a base where the government said he never worked.
Yep.
Right.
That's proof in the pudding right there, man.
And there actually has been a couple of more witnesses that worked at Area 51 that said they couldn't speak to what Bob was saying, but they remember seeing Bob at Area 51 coming out of the plane. So there has been some.
And let's face it, there have been other guys that have been snubbed out, man. That when they Phil Snyder's another one, you know, and a lot of people who have early on whistleblowers, man, they suicided themselves.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, come on, man.
Well, sure, our government can make you disappear, and they can make you where you didn't work somewhere where you actually did. They really can do that.
Oh yeah.
And I've met Stan Freeman, good man, but I think a lot of that was based on his opinion, and that'll happen too. I mean, we saw Dr. John Napier, who was very much a believer in the possibility of a Bigfoot existing, completely try to say that the Patterson-Gimlin film was a hoax or was not real, based on what he thought. So that's right. Walt claimed he worked at Area 51 and S4.
Yeah. Well, you know, and I know you've taken a hard look at the Native American background when it comes to Bigfoot and Sasquatch. I mean, there's tribe after tribe after tribe that have a similar description for these creatures, and it dates back thousands of years. You know, and most tribes don't have a written history. It's all oral and it's passed down, or it's written on petroglyphs or cave art, you know, and you can see it all over the world, you know, same type of creatures, different breeds of them, whatever you want to call it. I mean, what was it? 2017, they found a brand new species of orangutan in Sumatra right under everybody's nose. They never knew about. So, you know, they one of my favorite ones is the Kraken. You know, all these old sailor tales in the captain's logbooks talk about these giant squids and called it the Kraken and stuff. And lo and behold, Japanese fishermen catch a 65-footer in their fishing net. That's the Kraken, folks. I mean, that is a Kraken. You know,
the nice thing about Bigfoot is, you know, and this really gets under the skeptic skin, is because Bigfoot exists all over the world across cultures that had no contact with each other. Each individual culture would have a legend of some hairy man.
Yep.
So that really gets to the skeptics. They're like, well, explain that to me. They can't.
They can't.
I think, you know, and what people don't understand is that we're attacking this from an investigator standpoint. And I know Mick says that, well, Stan Freeman confirmed, you know, sourced, he confirmed 100%. I need to see that. I never really, you know, I'll take a look at it. He couldn't be in two places at the same time. You know what? There's been times Bob Gimlin has misspoken as well. That doesn't mean it didn't happen. When you're talking about events, you tend to lose sometimes dates. Even I do that, you know.
Oh yeah, I'm like me. I'm horrible with names. I can't remember anyone's name. I have to talk to him 2 or 3 times after I first meet him, then I remember him.
Every morning I get up, I have to look at my name tag just to remember who the hell I am.
It just comes with old age, brother. You know. I'm pushing senior citizen. I'm pushing the senior citizen card now. So
he's getting ready to age another year here for long. Won't be long.
Yeah. I hit the old speed limit this month.
Oh, I'm right behind you.
Yeah.
In May, I hit the speed limit.
Yeah.
So you know.
Yeah. You know, so you understand when Dave and I are out in the field, like Pennsylvania Bigfoot camping adventure, we will be there in September. Remember, guys, we will accept donations of Metamucil, Geritol, and any kind of pain medication. Shy of Haldol,
Tylenol, ibuprofen,
Tylenol 3.
I'm gonna get me one of them buggies with some knobby tires on it, man. 4-wheel drive.
Yeah, well, the best we can do is this walker with knobby tires.
There you go. Yeah.
The horn on it.
But that's another thing, even though our civilization is ever expanding.
Really? Really?
What do you say? Depends on undergarments. Not yet. Getting close though. But the Monongahela National Forest here is right where I do a lot of my investigations. Oh, I think we lost connection there again.
We're good. We're good.
Oh, there you go. The Monongahela National Forest here is a vast expanse of land, man, and there's places out there that's so rugged. I guarantee you, people haven't even attempted to traverse that stuff, man. It's and it's a great habitat for a creature such as Bigfoot to exist and live and thrive in.
Well,
so there's places like that all over the world.
I don't know if Steve knows this or not, but years ago, Stanton Friedman was on a podcast that I was watching and actually called in, and I got to talk with Stanton Friedman for about 15 minutes. And I had my questions that I had for him and stuff. But did you know, I don't know if a lot of you guys know it, he was actually a classmate with Carl Sagan. They were in the same class together.
That I did not know. And
that blew my mind,
Do you know, in 2011, I actually went to dinner with Stanton Freeman.
No joke.
Myself, the head of the MUFON in Pennsylvania, and myself, we all went to dinner because we were coming in for the UFO Bigfoot, Pennsylvania UFO Bigfoot conference in 2011. That was the first real big speaking event I did.
Yeah.
Where I talked about, what would Sasquatch do? The whole thing about it's the first time I ever introduced that stuff. And I showed up early and I come down into the lobby and there's John, the head of the MUFON UFO group, and Stanton standing there. And they're like, hey, you want to go to dinner? Okay, I'm in.
Very cool.
So I got to go that was kind of cool. So
I asked him, one of the questions I had for him, of course, at this time when we're talking on the phone, I've got the media hat on. All right. And I asked him, I said, well, Mr. Stanton, in your opinion, is Earth being visited by one culture from outer space, or are there many different cultures visiting Earth? And his opinion was, he said, oh yeah, there are lots of guys from all over, visiting us, not just one culture. So that kind of blew me away. I was like, well, wouldn't it be great if there was just one? But can you imagine so many, coming to Earth?
Well, it makes sense if you think about it. Look at what they're discovering with the Hubble telescope now, man. There's literally as many habitable planets as there are grains of sand on a beach, they're saying now. So, I mean, if you think about that, that's mind-boggling.
Yep.
Yep.
And for those who want to know, Stan was really a great, very amicable guy, great to talk to and stuff like that. Yeah. Jen said visiting or keeping an eye on us. You never know. You never know.
No,
yeah. So, yeah.
Now, Dave mentioned earlier that he was in New Mexico with his stepfather, who was in the Air Force.
Yes.
Were you up near Alamogordo, or were you up near Albuquerque? Somewhere around
I lived on Kirtland Air Force Base, home of Sandia Labs, where all kind of UFO stuff went down.
Oh, yeah. That's a cool spot. Yeah.
Yep. And then when I was in the Air Force, I was stationed at Tucson, and I was there during the Phoenix Lights incident. Go figure, right?
Oh, good Lord.
Boom.
And I saw some crazy stuff in the skies out there, let me tell you. Well, they call that the UFO highway through there.
Did you get to see the lights, or did you see the
triangle? No, but I've talked a little bit before about this. We got put on alert, and we were armed like we were going to war, and we were in a hangar all night. No one told us what the hell was going on until the next morning. It was all over the news and stuff. But my base is Davis Monthan Air Force Base, and we are home to 3 squadrons of A-10s, and they were flying all night, if that tells you anything.
Do you know if they were armed or not?
Oh, yeah. And what people reported as flares was not flares. Let me tell you.
Yeah. And
go figure, when we all kept asking questions about it, guess what? We all started getting transferred all around the world. I went to Italy for 5.5 years after that.
Nice.
So,
that wasn't bad though.
No, it was cool. I mean, I was in and out of the desert and all kinds of other stuff too, but yeah. And then when I was a little kid, we this is so weird about me too, is when my mom first got with my stepdad, guess where he was stationed? McGuire Air Force Base, Fort Dix, New Jersey. You've heard that alien story too, right? Where one escaped supposedly and they shot it dead on the runway. And so it's kind of weird how I ended up there, and then New Mexico, Kirtland Air Force Base, which of course, Richard Doty worked there as a OSI agent. And he's all over the UFO stuff. And then I was at Tucson during the Phoenix Lights incidents. I just thought that, it's kind of bizarre how I was at all these UFO hotspots as well as having that Bigfoot experience as a very young man. So it is what it is. Coincidence? Maybe not.
Well, it's very interesting. I, along with Frank Cicienski and some other elements of my team, although they weren't with us but Frank and I actually saw a UAP on a Bigfoot mission during the day, a light in the sky during the day, and it hovered and it moved around for probably a good 25 minutes or so, and then it flew off towards Rutland to return about 25 minutes later for about maybe 5 minutes, and then it just blinked out. And this was at a time, I want to say this was circa 2012 when this happened. 2011, 2012. So this was before drones started catching on and before drones were as good as they are now.
Yeah.
And this thing by far was nowhere close to us. The emanation of the light was brighter than, it was bright. It was like a star in the sky during the day almost. It wasn't like the sun. It's totally silent. And, and I didn't spot it at first. Actually, Frank says, "Hey, look, what the hell is that thing?" And I'm like going, "Oh my God." And, I would have filmed it, but that was just before droids came out, before I had a droid, I think. So I didn't even have a camera phone.
Yeah.
So, at that time, the only thing I had were these static cameras on the ground, and they, I didn't think to pull one up and try, because I don't know what the video quality would have been anyway, but we just stood there and watched it. No camera, had one of those little old flip phones at the time. So it's like, damn it. Had that happened now, I would have been able to capture that.
4K.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, technology has advanced so much in the last just 7-8 years. It's unreal, man. And especially, I mean, the cell phone I have now is that new Samsung S21, and I'm able to see craters on the moon and take pictures of it with that damn thing.
Wow.
It's insane, man. It's insane. And I've got them on some of my social media. Go over there and check it out. I mean, I took those with a cell phone.
2010, man, I had a little pocket camcorder. It's called a Jazzy Pocket, about the size of a pack of smokes. And that thing was 640 by 480. And I thought, man, I'm the king, dude. I had got video,
Yeah, now it's like, what is that shit?
Yeah, man, that's ancient.
Yeah, we all have some of those ancient pieces because that's what we did when we got what we needed to.
At the time, it was cutting edge technology.
So let me ask Dave, how did becoming law enforcement help you in assisting with your investigations you've done?
Well, they teach you investigative techniques, that, and you can take those techniques and use that in your investigative skills when you're researching and investigating paranormal phenomena, and supernatural activity. You can apply that same model in a lot of ways. It doesn't always match up, but you can, if you stick to the same model and you're using that, it works for me, and when I write my books, I'm kind of writing them like a law enforcement report, to tell you the truth. time of day and all that good stuff, as best you can remember. And then you use your interview techniques when you're interviewing eyewitnesses and people who've had experiences, so it helps out a lot. And it just, I never thought I'd write a book. I was like, I'll never, I wasn't even in my mindset. But Rosemary Ellen Guiley, who was kind of like a mentor along with Johnny Zaffis, and then they're like, dude, you got so much stuff. You got it. And Weatherly too. They're like, you got so much stuff, man. You got to put that out for people to, hear about all the things you've done, and it'll help them in the long run because they'll share in their experiences as well. And that's the truth. It really, a lot of people come out and they'll email you, once they see you put out your experiences and other people you've interviewed, that makes them feel comfortable enough to say, hey, back in '64, I was on this hunting trip and I had this crazy experience. And just like I said with the story, I think when we talk as people together, and those that knowledge is power in a way, and it helps bring this stuff to light. And as we see with the whole UFO UAP thing that's going on right now, Hollywood's been drip feeding us this stuff for years. People started doing documentaries, and innovators like Stanton and Linda Moulton Howe and all these early on people have paved the way for what's going on right now. Same with the Patterson Gimlin film, people all over the world have had experiences with these creatures, these beings and different things, seeing strange craft in the sky. And to me, a lot of it overlaps and interrelates. I know you've probably interviewed people. I know I have, especially here in West Virginia, where there was a rash of Bigfoot sightings in the area. And at the same time, if you backtrack and do some research, lo and behold, there were strange lights in the skies at the same time, too. So what's going on here? As an investigator, you have to look at the whole picture. You got to think outside the box. You can't see it one way. You have to look at all aspects of this stuff, because it doesn't always happen that way, but a lot of times it does. So what's going on here? Even when I investigate hauntings, there's been numerous times people have claimed to have sleep paralysis and other things, and objects moving in their homes. But at the same time, they're having dreams of these little gray beings in their bedroom, and they're floating to the ceiling and going out into this craft, and all this stuff's interrelated in a lot of ways. What's really going on here? Are these alien beings implanting things in your mind and making you think you're seeing spirits, but it's really them screwing with your brain because they're doing experiments on you? What's going on here? You have to look at all aspects of this stuff. It wasn't that long ago you couldn't mention Bigfoot or Sasquatch and UFOs in the same sentence because you'd be ousted by both communities. But people are slowly coming, they're coming full circle with it and saying, hey, could some of this stuff be related? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But you're just hurting the whole field if you don't look at the whole big picture of what may be going on here.
So, Jim Lansing,
that's just my opinion. I've been doing this a long time, so.
Very, it is strange. The high strangeness has continued on. Jim Lansing just sent me a picture real close. That was me speaking at that conference that he was there. Jim was there when I spoke. That was kind of funny. I don't know.
Ninja's got one, Steve. He made a good point here. UAP or UFO?
They're interchangeable. Well, isn't it coincidental? Bigfoot or Sasquatch?
Right.
Bigfoot yet called Sasquatch, yet he doesn't complain.
I prefer UFO myself, but that's if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
That's part of the government conspiracy that really was a conspiracy to hide UFOs from the public. Is they closed Project Blue Book and they said, okay, we no longer investigate UFOs, but they opened up a new one called the UAPs.
They created something called ATIP.
Yep.
They could truthfully say we no longer investigate UFOs.
And then we find out ATIP was funding Robert Bigelow at Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing, the Pandora's box that has been opened, but nothing Bigfoot. So
yeah. And that's what the government's famous for, though. They close one project, get new personnel in, and change the name, and it continues on. That way, it's compartmentalized,
right.
and they can keep changing the narrative as they want, and that's the way they keep things covered up.
And for folks that don't know, in the very early 90s, I was a UFO investigator. So I'm very well versed. Like before Project Blue Book, there was Project Grudge.
Mm-hmm.
And then after Project Grudge was the Condon Report,
which was all made up BS. They paid that guy to debunk everything.
Correct. And then Project Blue Book and the scientists behind Blue Book came out and said, wait a minute, they're covering this up. This is not. Yes. We were being told to explain it by swamp gas and other atmospheric conditions, when really that it wasn't.
Yeah.
Traveling with Jim just said, yet he doesn't complain. Groan. Sorry,
that was
sorry, just had to.
So I think maybe since the government kind of swept the UFOs underneath the rug,
and this is what I agree with Pat's statement, saying, why can't aliens abduct Sasquatch too? I mean, obviously, if they're studying us, they could be studying them and other. We might be one big zoo to them.
Well,
we are being. I think we're being. When people that say, well, there's been Sasquatch seen getting off craft, and maybe that's so, maybe it's not, maybe it's utter bullshit. We don't really know,
right?
But because we weren't there. But my point is that we are being anthropocentric to think that we are the UFOs. Only interest here on this planet. There's a lot of other intelligent beings on the planet. Sasquatch, I would think, would be one of them, because everybody says how intelligent they are. Octopus are incredibly smart. Dolphins, whales. I mean, there is a plethora of life that they would just not be interested in us, but they would be interested in everything on this planet.
What they say they couldn't link. What was that scientist? They said they could not link any octopus DNA to anything else on the planet.
Exactly.
They are truly aliens. They said.
Yeah.
Those things are crazy. What they can do.
They are, and they're smart too. I've seen a video of an octopus. Now, we talk about ourselves and how smart we are, and think about the primate minds, but think about this octopus that they put in there, and the octopus figured out to get through this little maze to get to the treat. It actually had to figure out how to spin this wheel on a door to open it, and it took it all about a minute to go, oh, I got to spin this thing to open it, and it did.
That's scary if you think about it.
But it's not when I've had an epiphany of sort, but I'm not ready to say it yet. And it's not about Sasquatch, but I will, after the show, I will run this by Dave, because I want to talk to him about it, because Dave is one of those guys that investigates all types of things. And I want to see what he's got to say about it. Because it's
anything weird I'm into, man. So
yeah.
Well, it's the mystery,
Yeah.
Well,
I love mystery.
Well, I really think that when I give you guys this idea, it may drop you on your butt, because it was like the epiphany I had years ago, back in 2008, about Sasquatch behavior. How to kind of find where they're at, or kind of localize where they may be because of their behavior.
Yep.
I've always said that maybe, where Dave's encounter as a preteen or early teen, back then, that may be a great area for Sasquatch researchers to go, because it's acting territorial. That means they're living there. They're hanging out there on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like a roadside crossing may be nothing. That's just them in transit. It's called the home range. And finally, some people will see them doing something like getting water, or eating something or whatever. That is what we call a foci area. And each different behavior has a different level of recidivism. And that's why I knew in my area that there was a series of very territorial type of actions. The escorts, and we forget about escorts. And essentially that's what happened to you too, was escorting you guys out because it was following you out. Right. That's another great territorial behavior. And so that's how that all came to fruition. And if you have ones that are throwing rocks at you, acting out, giving you escorts, screaming at you, guess what? Probably not a bad place to do your research. Or if you hear some people having those type of encounters on a repeated basis,
that's a good spot.
Man, that's an area you not Pat's this wood bouncers.
Well, you'd be surprised. I've had people message me and demand I tell them where that was at.
Right.
And I'm like, no, no.
Especially if you're actively investigating an area.
Yeah. I only bring certain people in there with me, because I'm not going to let a bunch of yahoos come in there and start shooting everything up. Screw that.
Well, one thing I've learned is that if you let the wrong type of people in a certain area, they're going to scare them out.
Yep.
Because what they do a lot is for show. They don't necessarily, what they're doing is for show. Let's face it. Right? People forget we are the apex on the planet. We may not be able to physically take down a Sasquatch, but just because of our technological advances, they fear us. I believe. They don't know what, they've seen what we're capable of doing. They probably watched hunters before, and they understand that, guns are not necessarily a good thing.
Right.
They may try to shoo us out. If we get cantankerous, eventually they're going to leave. They're going to say, okay, This area is just too much of a pain in the ass to maintain. We're going to go find ourselves another quieter area. And essentially that's what human beings, when we were in our early stages of existence, did. That if an area was too inclement or too hostile, we would move to a lesser hostile area.
And so what is it? Where is that at? Where is it? I know it's Pacific Northwest somewhere where that one tribe up there would said that the Bigfoots would often mark their territory. They'd rip up trees by the root. That happens in Alaska too. And they stick them in the ground upside down, marking their territory, and to let you know that, hey, this is our area. Stay the hell out of it. I haven't seen that here in West Virginia, but I would love to see something like that in person.
I haven't seen it in New York either, but you never know what, weird, you would expect, like the chimpanzees, like us, a Sasquatch would have cultural differences. So maybe they do that in one area because that's what they've learned, but not do it necessarily in another area because they haven't learned that type of behavior. And, Don again says that's just loggers. And that could be too. There could be loggers going, okay, we're going to put a tree upside down over here just to show we've forested this area and we're going to let this grow. Or possibly.
But I've never heard of loggers doing that. Ever. And there's a ton of lumberjacks and loggers here where I grew up,
Some backhoe operators will do that. Yeah. They'll take and turn a tree upside down and stuff it down in there with a backhoe. Yeah.
Yep.
But now, is that responsible for everyone that's ever been done it? I doubt it.
And actually, Kaiju Ninja also piped in and says, I thought loggers do the upside tree thing. So you guys carry on for a minute. I'm going to
not around here. Not around here. I've never seen that, but you never know.
Well, yeah, you're right, Dave. They don't do it here and in Kentucky either. Not that I've seen or noticed, but in the Pacific Northwest, especially, I think that's really kind of like a popular thing to do. Those guys out there logging in the woods. Okay, they're going to mark a boundary line for logging last time. Right.
There wasn't no logging going on in that area.
Yeah.
So this is out in the middle of nowhere, Alaska, and there was no logging. There was trees everywhere, so.
Well, Brian Barber says, I found an upside down cherry tree in the middle of nothing but birch and oak. No cherry trees were anywhere near it.
That's bizarre.
Yeah. Weird stuff.
Yeah.
But, the way our government, though, has been talking about these UFOs openly here lately, I think it's only a matter of time when some more evidence comes forth. Then I think they're going to be openly talking about Bigfoot. We may have a congressional hearing about Bigfoot one of these days. I hope I live that long.
Yeah.
I'd like to see it.
Well, there's weird stuff. I've sent samples in and hair samples and different stuff, and never came back. Never got a phone call. No one answered the phone when I'd call. What's going on here? Why can't you just say, well, we don't know what it is? I've got voice analysis of various what I thought were Bigfoot hoops and yells and everything else. Came back as had them voice analyzed by voice experts, and came back as not any known creature in this world. So, what is it? I don't know. You got me, man. So I know what I saw was real, and it was pissed, and it was tearing down the woods, and it made some horrible sounds. So,
well, there was a project, and go ahead, Steve. You say something about?
I'm really not seeing anything about upside down trees using by loggers. There are people that will flip trees upside down because eventually the tops of the roots of the trees will start to bloom flowers eventually if they plant them. Right. There is a whole site dedicated to that, specifically Alaska, and it showed a bunch of trees that were plopped upside down and they were blooming with flowers. So I don't know.
Well, I read one account about a place in Washington State where a guy had done that, and some people were making some photos of and claiming, "Oh, look, it's Sasquatch activity," and this guy with the backhoe said, "No, I did that."
I just saw the documentary that was talking about that, and these natives were understanding that was how they marked their territory. Yeah. So whether it's real or not, I couldn't tell you.
Well, that's in that movie. What was it? Sasquatch: The Legend of Bigfoot, one of my favorite Bigfoot films from the 70s.
That's probably the one I saw it on. Yeah,
upside down trees like that.
Well, Vault of Nightmares actually got that audio there that you hear in the. No, just kidding.
Yeah. He does.
Hello to Outback Orchard. Good to see you, sir.
And one of our members 55. Here. The chat is hopping. Look at that.
And he was on our show not too long ago explaining his experiences as well. Yeah. So, the chat is hopping.
Very cool. I don't think, personally, I don't think the UFO mystery and the Bigfoot mystery are related, but
directly.
Yeah, but they are both mysteries, and I love mystery. If something new comes on the tube and it's about a mysterious thing, something happening, I don't care what it is. I'll watch it. I like it. I like this stuff.
Well, it could be just what we talked about. They might be studying them too, if that's the case. Who knows? Or they might have put us all down here on this planet as an experiment. Who knows? Yeah. I mean, you can go down the rabbit hole many different directions with this stuff. It's like an onion, all these different layers.
If we do have aliens visiting our world and they are like, looking at cattle and stuff like that, sure, they'd want to look at a Bigfoot. Sure.
And, what I like is that Dave has that bullshit detector because he's dealt with the bad elements. So and it's like myself too. It's like you deal with enough shitheads. Eventually, somebody comes to you and says, "Oh, well, I saw this, said that," and you start asking questions. You could see almost instantaneously where this is going almost. And that's nothing that's textbook necessarily. It's just stuff that you've learned and recognize almost reactively to at times. And like most of the time, I would say 90% plus of the time, you're right on the money when you have that feeling, oh, this is going to go bad. This is just
yeah. I mean, I've interviewed so many people and, you can tell. Now and nowadays, unfortunately, there are the people out there that think they're gonna if you interview them or something, they're gonna get on a TV show or something, and you just got to deal with them and move on, And
that to me was really huge in the paranormal side of things.
Oh yeah, massively.
I did that for a while, and that's why I kind of stepped back from it. It's like everybody and their brother wanted their own TV show.
Yeah, yeah. I had a case one time, and I believe the lady. I even put her through a law enforcement style interview process. That's what I always do, trying to filter out the BS. And so I went to her house, and I pull up, and there's all these cars there. There's like 20 cars. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? So I go up to the door, and they're all in there and they've got wine and cheese and they're all hooting and hollering, carrying on. I'm like, what's going on here? And she said, oh, we want to watch you how you do something. I said, no. And I said, have a nice night, and I left, Yeah. And they couldn't understand why. I said, it's bullshit. You're just, you're using me for a dog and pony show here. It's not happening.
Now, let's talk about another topic. Somebody had mentioned earlier about false flags, and then we have this comment: aliens at the mall.
Yeah.
And to me, that is the false flag. Strangely, it came out a week before the hearing.
Yeah.
The closed door skiff hearing that they were having in. Now, Corbell did the smart thing the day before, a couple of days before that skiff hearing. Corbell put the jellyfish video out. The next day, the Tubi documentary, which if you haven't seen it, watch it. It's called UFO Revolution. It's on Tubi. It's free to watch. Watch that if you haven't seen it. That'll give you the 411 on what's going on. And it's amazing. The senator, the main senator that's been the most outspoken about that, had a quote on there, and I'm going to paraphrase here. He said, yes, you'll have this whistleblower come forward at great risk to himself, put his whole career on the line, and then he'll commit suicide with 3 bullets in the back of his head.
Yep.
And that is a U.S. senator talking.
Yep.
So to me, that is, says a lot.
Very compelling. And I don't know if you guys know, but that I forget her name off the top of my head. Like I said, I'm bad with names, but that UK lady and her friend that backtracked all that Illuminati stuff, They found her dead, suicided, and she went missing for like 2 weeks. Now she's dead.
Yep.
So there's lots of people who have spilled the beans on some stuff, and they all end up suicided. And it's if you're not paying attention to that, that should tell you how dirty and corrupt certain organizations are in our country and other governments around the world. I mean,
and look at that
stop
report.
it because it's all about this right here. It's all about reverse engineering things and that technology and the arms races and everything else.
Let me just there's another one too. I believe her first name was Dorothy. I'm trying to get her last name. Oh yes, Dorothy Kilgallen.
Yeah.
She was one who wrote a lot about on the Kennedy assassination.
Mm-hmm.
And she mysteriously died by herself of supposedly an accidental overdose in her apartment. And this was in the 60s.
Yep.
And Kilgallen was a very public figure. I mean, really out there. Would have been equivalent to like a like a Dan Rather type at the time. I mean, she was on TV shows. She was being quoted. She was at all the big social functions in Hollywood. And then she lived in New York City and began to pick up on the Kennedy assassination, talked to Jack Ruby, and was on the verge of having a very private conversation with Jack Ruby. And then she turns up dead in her apartment of an overdose. That seemed very unlikely. And the autopsy was mishandled with her as well. And so a lot of interesting stuff going on. So Corbell had a statement which I think is really true on this UFO revolution topic. And he said basically, what kind of mental illness, and this is again for the Bigfoot mystery, what kind of mental illness do you have to exclude all eyewitness testimony to come to the result that you want?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's, where I think science, the bias of science has become a religion to some. I think some scientists, it's just as much as a religion. Well, if you can't, this can't be, we have to exclude that. Well, you don't exclude that and everything else.
No, it's absurd. I mean, it's absurd, really.
Why are they ignoring track evidence?
Yep.
When track evidence was the start and eyewitness testimony was the start to the discovery of the Billy ape.
Yeah, you can be convicted in a court of law from eyewitness testimony, and you're going to discard all those thousands of different eyewitness. No, this doesn't work like that.
Right, we're not talking about one or two eyewitnesses. We're talking
tens of
about thousands, and ones that are not connected, ones that may not know each other, ones that are from East Coast to West Coast to all over the world, actually.
Yep.
So I think that was Corbell had a great statement there. What kind of mental illness is that? And to just discount eyewitness testimony.
If you think about it, it's actually evil. It's pure evil, because you're hiding the truth from the world on a lot of these subjects.
You're minimizing a person's traumatization.
Yep.
You're minimizing that person's trauma, because let's face it, you had trauma as a result of your sighting. Yeah. I know Jay out there in chat, he had trauma as a result of his sighting. Because you guys were not prepared to see that. People that have a Sasquatch sighting that are not prepared to see that.
No.
Have trauma to that. Right. And that's why I think we have so much of that PTSD after effect called Bigfoot on the brain. Somebody has a legit sighting, and then next thing you know, they're seeing Bigfoot everywhere. That's trauma. That's just like a veteran getting into a firefight, coming back, and now something goes snap outside and they think they're under fire.
Yep.
Yeah. After you've seen a Bigfoot in the woods, next time you hear a twig snap behind you, the first thing pops in your mind is, oh my God, there's Bigfoot. One right behind me. Yeah.
That's why I got out of my tree stand and I was gone, man. I'm gone.
Yeah, it can happen to everybody. Yeah.
I mean, the same goes with anything. I mean, it's just, if you're not expecting to see something, and it's not, especially if it's not in your plane of existence and you come upon it. That's why I don't really have much trauma from my sighting. I don't have any trauma from my sighting, because I was already aware of its existence. I knew what they looked like. I understood a lot of their behaviors, and it took me really 13, 14 years, whatever it was. I'm not in a mathematical mood right now. But it took me a number of years to actually see one with my own bare eyes. And it's very different when you see one with equipment. I have had some fleeting glimpses with night vision, seeing a couple move, scurry here and there for brief instantaneous seconds, but I have never had a naked eye sighting until that one in 2011. And then again, a very quick one in 2012. But I was expecting to see that, so it didn't bother me. But even if you watch the video, which was taken seconds after, minutes after my sighting, you could see I was still a little bit struck. But that wears off. It doesn't have any after-lasting effect. But imagine having that sighting and being 10 times as struck because you don't know what the hell you just saw.
And you go through this whole series of questions in your mind saying, did I just see that? Did I really just see that? Am I, what the hell? And you constantly second guess yourself, because that's so out of the realm of the norm that it's just hard to wrap your mind around, and you go through this whole thing. And a lot of people that have these experiences are fully traumatized, have PTSD from it and everything else, and they need an outlet sometimes to talk to other people that have had this similar experience, So
that's something too, that I think as a researcher, if we're out there, we're looking, we're doing the thing. We're pretty sure these things exist before you have your first sighting. But once you actually get out there and you have your first sighting, you're like, okay, confirmed. I've seen it. It's there. Now that, I think that still strikes people as they get Bigfoot on the brain temporarily after that. But everything's Bigfoot. But now if you take the average person that is not out in the woods searching for Bigfoot, just a family on a nature outing, and they walk around the corner and there's a bunch of hairy folks standing there, that has got to be traumatic.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
They had no idea that these things exist, probably never even thought two times about Bigfoot. And then boom, there they are right there in front of them.
Oh yeah.
I can imagine that sticking with a person for years.
And I think it also has, I think I would have been traumatized if I came face to face with one. Like, ooh, that probably would have been a little bit different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was close enough. I don't want to get any closer than that. I don't know what I would do. I'd probably freeze, to be honest with you, because it's just a massive creature, man.
Pete H on the money is veterans say they have an overwhelming feeling of fear, and that's very true with our Sasquatch witnesses too. Yeah. Not to downplay or say that, you know, a veteran, let's face it, goes through far worse than seeing a Bigfoot. Let's put that right out there now. I'm not trying to say that this is necessarily in the same category, just that the behaviors are similar. But, you know.
What do you guys think about some of those reports? Did you ever read those reports from some of the Vietnam veterans when they had those battles with rock apes and whatnot? I thought those are very compelling stories, you know, and there's numerous veterans that came out and were talking about that. And then they had some weird stuff go on in Afghanistan and some of those caves too. There was reports of red-headed giants and everything else from military personnel.
I've actually talked to a gentleman who said he was there. Met him.
Me too.
Met him. Oh, okay, so probably the same guy.
The same. No, it's a different guy. There's multiple units that saw these things, man.
Yeah, met this guy face to face, but he won't come on. He won't come on the air.
No, they won't talk. Like I tried to get this guy to do an interview on camera with me. He said, "No way, man." Oh. He said we were ordered not to say nothing and all kinds of stuff.
Yep.
And this guy's from the local area, and he is in a ranger unit out there, and he was telling me some crazy stuff that they saw, man.
But conversely, we had this gentleman on, and that's in the archives too. So if you haven't listened to it, Dave, give it a listen. We had a Army Ranger,
Mapinguari,
medic, and they were doing actions against FARC down in, I believe, Ecuador.
Yeah,
and they had multiple experiences with the Mapinguari following
them.
And very great story. And then it actually kicks off a little bit into his time when he was actually reported missing in action for 22 days because he got detached from his unit.
Yeah. And holy shit.
And he was, you know, he talks about, you know, his thoughts about ending his life because he thought it was hopeless. And eventually he got found by one of the tribes out there. And eventually they got him in the right direction and they got into the right people. And, you know, he provided us, you know, pictures of his, you know, actual pictures of the Ranger unit and everything too. So it's very, very compelling stuff. And Ray Sheasley is his name.
Yeah.
And
I'll check that one out.
Great guy.
One of the things that Ray said that stuck with me, he's talking about the Mapinguari had the lighter patch of hair on its chest. I've seen that. I've seen that, so that's not just in the.
Well, here's an interesting, you know, and the interesting thing too about that is, if you think about it, and I don't know, you know, I came with my own sweater when I was born. Right. When I go to the barber, I say a little off the back. I mean, a little off the back.
I hear you.
But right here has all turned gray. So that should maybe give you.
Yeah, maybe it's an age factor with them.
Maybe. Yeah.
I really think they're migratory too, man. A lot of times. So.
Well, I believe that too. We've seen, like in our area, we've seen a lot of movement between New York and Vermont and back. And guess what town and village is right in that crosshair? Whitehall, New York.
Whitehall. Yeah.
Right in the crosshairs of that. You know, the Aboriginal Native Americans that came, they had their summer homes and winter homes.
Yeah.
So it's something primates do. So it's another confirmation to me that they're primate-like because of their behaviors, because of their actions, because of how they habitate. And the whole idea was, when I did my thesis, was, is Bigfoot a primate? Well, does it fit into, can you take the pieces we know about Bigfoot, given the vast amount of reports and their behaviors, does it fit into that primate model? And it did, to a T. I mean, like every single piece fits. And you're right, some don't migrate depending on like Aboriginal Native Americans that had no reason to migrate. The Seminoles didn't migrate.
No.
Think about it, they didn't have winter.
No.
They had year-round same weather.
And food, plenty of food.
So there's no reason to migrate. Some don't migrate because they have no reason to. and like the area of the Adirondacks I have, guess what drops off come, by the end of October, the leaves done. Sometimes they drop a little earlier, beginning of October, depending on the weather.
Well, with primates too, if there's two combating males, right, they will branch off and start their own unit, so to speak, and just like lions do, and other animals, So yeah, if they're competing and they don't want to compete anymore and start their own
now
brood, whatever you want to call it.
Both Don and Brian had made a comment the ones here in northern Michigan seem to stay put. The one, Don Gumow, who lives in Maine, says, well, the ones here stay put. Well, guess what they have in Maine and Minnesota, northern Minnesota? A lot of fir trees.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of fir trees. The Adirondacks, where all these reports are coming from, maple, oak, and birch. Guess what happens come the fall? The leaves go away. Makes that place very, very visible for a while.
Yeah.
You get like a couple 100 feet of being able to look around pretty freely. So what does that mean? Okay,
they lose their cover.
Our cover is blown, number one, and number two, our cover is blown for any precipitation coming down. So why do they move to the Green Mountains? Because they're all fir trees. That's why they call them the Green Mountains. Yep. So that makes perfect sense that Michigan and Minnesota, northern Minnesota, which have a lot of fir trees and pine trees and deciduous forest, why they would stay put.
That's why it's best to always go in Kentucky early spring, late fall. You can be out there in the woods. You can look. You can see 200 or 300 yards away, and it's clear. You just have the color of the leaf litter on the ground. And if you see any dark areas, that's where you need to start looking.
Yep. That's how it is here in West Virginia. Now we do have some pine thickets here and there, and some mountain laurel. That's pretty thick cover, but we do have a lot of caves here too as well. So,
I know. And not to pop back on the Miami topic, but I just wanted to get a little confirmation. But again, it was in Miami, and people were astounded by the number of police cars and all the police that were involved.
That's a huge response.
Yep. But wouldn't that be a normal response for a city of that size, considering the fact that there were reports of children blowing fire? Eventually, they came out that there were some firecrackers or fireworks that were lit off in the mall, which could mimic the sounds of gunshots.
Gunfire, yep.
And that makes perfect sense as to why the response. I explained that we have a gang fight and we get 30 police units to the mall in our area. And that's a lot of units for this particular area, because collectively this area may have about 400,000, 450,000 people. And I'm talking about 3 counties or 4 counties that usually go to mutual aid.
And to the untrained ear, people are going to hear firecrackers going off thinking it's gunshots. They don't know the difference. So they're going to call in someone shooting up the mall, and there's going to be a huge response.
Yep. And again, Outback Orchard, who's from my area, says deer winter and conifer forest in the winter. I imagine that's where Bigfoot go. We also follow the deer, correct? Because that's the other thing you see too, is the deer all shuffle off to the conifers and to the firs. So makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, these are pieces of the puzzle. As myself as an investigator goes, aha. Yeah. This is all, this all makes perfect sense going down.
Yeah, you got to use common sense when you're doing this stuff, because what would you do if you needed cover? Just like early humans, they sought out cover for the weather and everything else. So these things are very human-like and very, very intelligent, and they're gonna do what makes sense to them.
And if anybody has not caught the short video I put out there, want to see how smart they are. Smart primates can be at a very young age. I put this video out, this little short, and I do that. I put these funny monkey videos out there every once in a while, just because, number one, I think it proves to a lot of people here that like the Bigfoot mystery of how smart they are, but I do it in a part that will attract other people to look at the video and perhaps come to the channel and look at it and say, hey, you know what? This is an interesting topic. I'm going to get educated. And where are they going with this? So I put that, but it just shows how smart they are at a young age and the sense of humor they can have. And it's just this little guy going up behind this silverback, pokes him in the back, and
I've seen that video.
Right, backs off. But you haven't seen the one with the special effects I put in there. It's pretty.
No, bro, I haven't seen that
one. yeah, because I put some sound effects in there, and yeah, that's right, Pat. That monkey is a pain in the ass. He was poking him just above the butt crack, and you see the the silverback kind of swipe a couple of times. He comes over and pokes again, and the silverback's not having. He just takes off after him.
Yeah.
But it just shows you how smart, they are. And you want to talk about human-like. I mean, it shows that, to me, it shows the connection to the rest of the primates in us, because that's something, how many people here have wet willied somebody? Come on.
Oh yeah, of course.
Well, I think stuff like that helps people realize that these creatures are thinking, and not only that, but they're emotional creatures. And when you take and you add emotion to something, that brings the wild animal away from it a little bit, because you're getting more human-like, because we are emotional creatures. And when you see like chimpanzees behaving in a way that's sometimes they can be very loving, they can be very gentle, and other times they could, if they wanted to, they could rip your face off, of course.
Oh yeah.
But I think these Sasquatch are the same way. They're emotional beings, and which that's kind of scary in a way. They're not like a Holstein cow or something. These things, you smack one, it's probably going to get angry about it.
Oh yeah.
And we've talked about that too. I mean, and Dave mentioned earlier about the ability to, they have different personality.
Right.
It's why wouldn't they? Chimps have different personalities. Gorillas have different personalities. We certainly have a bunch of different personalities.
Yeah.
But I don't see any gorillas going around saying they were in the Marine getting enlisted to a special werewolf hunting group. I'll say that much.
Right.
I never talked to anybody in the Air Force that was, involved in hunting cryptids. I don't know.
There's a few of us out there.
I mean, as a official duty, AFSC, what, Air Force Specialty Code of
no.
Or something?
No, I never heard of that.
So here's an interesting fact that, Dave, that you kind of have in common with my late brother. My brother was Air Force, and back in the 60s, and then he became a police officer for 20 years and retired. And he was big into the UFO mystery. That was his thing. He enjoyed looking at that and did that for a while. I mean, he didn't do it once he retired from the police force. He was like,
I'm sure he heard stuff from pilots and everything else. I mean, I got a lot of reports from pilots, and one of my friends I was in high school with, he became an A-10 pilot, and he ended up at the same base I was at. And I saw him one day. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? He was a captain. I was just an enlisted guy, but he was a captain then, and he told me some pretty cool stuff, that he saw that he couldn't explain while flying missions and stuff.
So my brother belonged to this group called APRO back in the day.
I remember APRO. Yeah.
Yeah. I was an APRO investigator too, eventually. And, but my brother once told me this story, and now that he's gone, I can tell the story, is that he was up in his mom. We're actually half brothers. His mom lives up in Kinderhook, New York. I've been there plenty of times too. I know where it is. Middle of nowhere, Hudson Valley region, right?
Mm-hmm.
Near Kinderhook. Yep, hot spot for especially in the 80s. Well, in the 80s, he was actually at what they call appropriately the farm, because it was an old farm and big farmhouse there, and he decides one day, my brother was a character. He loved goofing off and doing crazy things. And he's like, one time he got this big thing of bubbles. And he's like, and had this big pan. And he got the big wand. And he dipped the wand into the bubble thing and swung it, made a big bubble. And he goes, this big bubble just floated off into the sky. And it floated. And the sun was reflecting off it. And it looked like a big UFO floating away. A week later, he gets a report for a UFO like a quarter of a mile down the road from where his mom lived. He was like,
oops.
Yeah, I made that. He made that one.
Yeah, whoops. He goes, I didn't call that person. I didn't say nothing. Like, I'm letting it go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you've taken your fair share of misidentifications and whatnot. And, it's just nature of the game. People see something weird. Who would ever dream there'd be a 10-foot bubble floating down the road? You know what I mean? That's pretty rare in itself. But, and then the sun.
This thing was glowing and it was undulating and it was.
Right. Yeah. So. Yeah.
No.
And then it just disappeared. Yeah.
Remember that TV show Land of the Lost? That's always one of my favorites because they had the whole gamut in there, man. They had the reptilians who were the flea stack. They had the Glimmer Man guy who was in the pyramids with all the crystals. They had Chaka who was a Bigfoot and his whole family. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So and then they had dinosaurs. That was early drip feeding of all the phenomena.
Yeah.
Dude, yes. Every
and then
Saturday
they went
morning.
to the Hollow Earth theory where they went underground and it's this whole other world,
Yeah.
That was a great show. You ever seen it?
When I was a kid, man, every Saturday morning, when I could sleep in.
Yep.
No, I was up at 6 o'clock in the morning waiting for Land of the Lost to come on.
Yeah, man.
So, Dave, before we go tonight, because we're getting close here, it's almost 5 already. Look how quick the time went there, Chris.
Dang it.
I don't know. Are you going to be up at Winter Parafest this year?
For the Whitehall thing?
No, the Rochester thing.
I don't know. I haven't heard from them yet. So
okay, all right.
I may not be. It's up to them,
Right.
But I know I'm gonna be near. I'm gonna be in Saratoga Springs in May for an event, or in April. Sorry, April for an event. I did an event up there this past year too with them. You were supposed to be at, and you couldn't come because you had to work. Remember?
Yeah. So anyway, Dave, when you go to the Saratoga Springs event, holler at me. We'll get together that night or something. If you're staying overnight, I'll give you the nickel tour of Whitehall. I'll bring you up to my area.
Okay, cool, definitely.
Because I live literally 10 minutes from that area. From that venue. So we'll get together, have dinner or something.
All right, sounds good, brother.
So
maybe hear some whoop.
Yeah, that friggin' whoop. Amazing. So hey, stick around after the show. I got to run a couple of ideas off you. But anyway, I want to thank you for coming on tonight. It's been a great, eye-opening discussion. Some great stories came out tonight. Some great ideas and great thoughts. And hopefully, the audience appreciated it, got it. Of course, we have the best audience in the world. We love you all. And Chris, take it away.
Yeah. Well,
thanks for having me, guys.
I want to thank Dave for being on. Appreciate having you. Man, I'll tell you what.
My pleasure.
This is a great show. I've enjoyed it. I want to thank everybody over in the chat and all our listeners. We appreciate you. We've got the best audience on YouTube. Well, anywhere for that matter of fact. If it's your first time you're watching, hit the subscribe. Hit the thumbs up. Everybody that's in the chat, please bump that thumbs up for us, please. That'll help that'll help the channel get a little recognition and help it get found.
And for those who don't know, up there and where people want the audio version, we are now rebroadcasting the audio versions eventually to all our places. Stitcher's out of business now, so iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Audible, Spotify. In fact, the video versions are now going up on Spotify as well because we're trying to build that audience as well over there. But please stay on YouTube. We love YouTube. That's where we grow. But for those listening to this, if you want to catch the audio, the video version, come on over here, youtube.com /@Squatch D-TV, all one word. And before we go, we got to do our one little advertisement because this coming Friday, that's right, I said this coming Friday, check this out.
where the legends and stories come to be. SP, Chris, they are hosts for that show, bringing you Bigfoot news show. Watching in the woods, catching all the clues. Digging deep to bring you all the news. From sightings to footprints, it's all in the light. Stay tuned to Squatch D, it's out of sight.
There's Chris doing his thing.
I love that.
So anyway, don't forget we'll be on
music.
we will be on Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern for the Bigfoot news.
Yeah.
So check us out this coming Friday. But on behalf of me,
Be square.
That's right. Well, there's a term that's back from the 80s. He's dating himself there. But anyway, on behalf of everybody here, we want to wish everybody a happy, great week. We'll see you all Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern for the Bigfoot news. And again, next Sunday night, 9 p.m. Eastern for Squatch D-TV Live. We'll catch you all here next week. Or this week, whatever it is. Remember, be safe, stay healthy, keep safe. Again, keep on squatching, and we'll catch you all later.
Good night.
Peace out. Peace out.
Hey folks, you've been watching Squatch D-TV. Join us each week, Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern for the latest on the Bigfoot mystery. As always, we thank you for being our loyal viewers and encourage all to subscribe to our YouTube page at youtube.com/Steve Kulls. As always, have a great week. Stay safe. God bless and keep on squatching.